Hi there, and welcome to the Okey's crochet tutorial for creating your very own adorable duck. I'm Haley, and I'm so excited to crochet with you today. In this video, we'll go step by step so you can follow along at your own pace. Before we dive in, here are the basic crochet skills or stitches you'll need for this project. Single crochet, increase, decrease, chain, half double crochet, increase, slip stitch, and a normal half double crochet. If you're new to any of these, don't worry. You can find quick tutorials for them right above this video on this page, or head to our crochet basics section on the tutorial page of our website. Take your time practicing before jumping in here. There's no rush. All right, let's take a look at everything included in your kit to make your cute little duck. If you're using the Okey's crochet kit, here's what's included. We have all 5 colors of our chenille yarn to make our duck. We have safety eyes, crochet hook, stitch markers, a yarn needle, and the stuffing for him. Additionally, you will need a pair of scissors, so make sure you've got some of those handy. All right, now a quick note before we get started, don't hesitate to pause or rewind anytime. You've got this. All right, let's get started. Grab your yarn and hook and we will begin our project. All right, we're gonna grab our Seafoam Sage Green to start with today. Dark crochet hook. And we're gonna start with creating our magic ring alternative. So to do that, I like to pinch the yarn in between my fingers and then wrap it around the first 2 fingers. Take my hook and go underneath this one right here. Grab the working yarn, pull it through, and then twist your hook to create a loop. Yarn over again and pull through again. Now holding your finger on this loop that's on your hook, gently pull on that yarn tail to close up that slip knot. All right, you've just created a slip knot and a chain 1, so we're just gonna chain 1 more time to create our chain 2 for our magic ring alternative. And then we're gonna begin with 8 single crochets. So we're gonna go into the second chain from our hook, so right down here by the slip knot. And we're gonna work 8 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, go ahead and grab a stitch marker. Just kind of helps keep our place as we go through. All right, and now you've created your first round, the magic ring alternative, with 8 single crochets. All right, let's get started on round 2. We're just doing 8 increases. So remember, an increase is just 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So increase number 1. Increase number 2. Increase 3. Increase 4. Increase 5. Increase 6. Increase 7. And increase number 8. All right, go ahead and move that stitch marker. Perfect. So for round number 3, we're going to be doing a single crochet and then an increase, and we're repeating those steps 8 times. So single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, oops, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, and our last increase. All right, go ahead and move that stitch marker. All right, round 4, we're just doing 24 single crochets on this one. Nice and simple. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. At this point, your piece will kind of start to curve, so just make sure you're flipping it so that the right side is facing out. So your beginning yarn tail should be on the inside of the project. Go ahead and move that stitch marker up. All right. Round number 5, we're doing 3 single crochets and an increase, and we're repeating that 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, increase, 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 1, 2, 3, increase. And it can be hard to keep your piece flipped the right way at the beginning, so once you start getting further, you'll see it get a little easier to keep it flipped. All right, round 6, we're doing 4 single crochets and an increase, repeating it 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, increase number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, increase number 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, increase number 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, increase number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, increase, number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, increase, number 6. Move your stitch marker. Alright, for rounds 7 and 8, we're just doing single crochets all the way around for 36 total. So I'll go ahead and get started. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Alright, go ahead and move it. Stitch marker. Alright, round 8, same thing, 36 single crochets around. Move the stitch marker up. Right, round number 9, we're doing 4 single crochets and a decrease, and we're repeating it 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease, 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease, 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease. I'm doing invisible decreases. I did forget to mention that. But if you want to just do regular decreases, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. 2, 3, 4, decrease. 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease. 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease. Right. Go ahead and move that stitch marker. All right, and then round number 10, we're doing 3 single crochets and a decrease, repeating it 6 times. 1, 2, 3, decrease, 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 1, 2, 3, decrease. Move that stitch marker. Alright, if you want to, you could add the safety eyes right now. They go in between rounds 7 and 8. But I personally like to wait and add them until we've at least started the body so that I can just see the placement better instead of just guessing where the body's going to be. But if you want to add them right now, you're welcome to because we have most of the head done. But I'm personally going to wait to do the eyes and stuffing until I get at least a little bit of the body done, just because I like to place them when I have the body on there. All right, round number 11, we're doing 2 single crochets and a decrease, and we're repeating it 6 times. So 1, 2, decrease, 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 and 1, 2, decrease. Move the stitch marker. All right, for round 12, we're just doing a single crochet and a decrease, and we're repeating that 6 times. So single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, last one, single, decrease. Move that stitch marker up. All right, round 13, we're doing 4 single crochets and a decrease, just repeating twice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease, and 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease. All right. Move that stitch marker up. All right, in round 14, we're just doing 10 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then on this 10th one, we are going to color change over to our vanilla cream white. So to color change, you're going to start the single crochet by pulling up the first loop in the Seafoam Sage Green, but then we're going to pull through both loops with the vanilla cream white. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut my Seafoam Sage Green off because we are done with it now. And then this is just a personal thing, like a personal preference I like to do, but I like to take the 2 yarn tails from the Seafoam Sage and the vanilla cream white, and I just like to tie them together before I get going. I just personally think it helps with making sure everything stays nice and secure, but you don't have to. That's just me. All right, make sure you move that stitch marker up, and then continuing with our vanilla cream white, we're going to do 10 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Head and move that stitch marker. All right, now we're moving in more to the body. So this is where it gets kind of tricky. We're going to grab our toasted almond beige yarn, And we're gonna start our chain for the body. So all we're gonna do is just hook it on and pull through just as if we were doing a regular chain. And that's number 1. And then we're gonna do 14 of them for round 16. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then for round 17, we're gonna start in that second crochet from, or that second single crochet from the hook, or chain from the hook, sorry. And we're just gonna start with 13 single crochets back down the chain, still working with our toasted almond beige. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and just be careful when you get to that end where we attached the toasted almond beige, because you have to kind of make sure that it stays tight in there. All right, so now you should have our beginning part of the body right here, and then you'll see we've got some stuff still here. So we're just gonna go ahead and start right into where our stitch marker was. And we're just doing 10 single crochets around. However, we're gonna switch over now back to our vanilla cream white. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whoa, 'I don't know what I just did there. All right. Then once you get the 10th one done, you should be right at the base of where the body starts. So I'm gonna take this out for just a second. Whoops. And as we're starting the next round, we're gonna be working solely with the toasted almond beige now. So I'm just gonna cut off the vanilla cream white. And like I said before, I like to tie the two of them together, especially with that toasted almond beige. Starting with the chain, I just like to make sure that it's gonna stay. All right. So for round 18, we're gonna start by grabbing our toasted almond beige, and we're working 12 single crochets up the other side of the chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12 should be right at the top, but you're still in the chain. We haven't gone over to these single crochets yet. All right, and then we're gonna go 2 increases. So this time we are heading over to this side. So we're gonna do 1, and then the second increase. All right, and then another 12 single crochets back down the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, last one goes right there, and 12. All right. And then around the neck, we're doing 2 single crochets and an increase, and we're repeating it 3 times. So 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase, and then you'll finish off the round with a single crochet. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker back in. At this point, I am going to place the safety eyes and stuff the head of the duck. Now that I kind of can see where the body is going to be more, you know where you're going to want to place your eyes on the front. So again, we're just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Between 7 and 8 is where they're going to go. And just kind of get them in place before you stick the things on. You should be able to see about 6 stitches in between, because we are going to be putting the beak right there as well, so you want to make sure that there's plenty of room. All right, I like that placement. And it can get kind of hard because the neck gets kind of tight. So just do your best to get these backs on. All right. And then as far as stuffing goes, we're just gonna grab some stuffing. All right, and then to stuff the head of our duck, because the neck is kind of tight, we have to kind of go in smaller chunks. But just gonna go ahead, and I just start by just getting some in there before I start making sure it's stuffed correctly. I just want to make sure that I get some stuffing in there. And then all you're gonna do is kind of reach in, and it is kind of hard with how tight it is on the neck, and just make sure you're pushing the stuffing to the outer edges so that we make sure we get it nice and full. like I said, it can be kind of hard to stuff at this point, but like I said, if you want earlier in the video, if you wanted to do it earlier, you can. But this is just when I find it easiest to place the safety eyes, and I don't want to stuff it before I place the safety eyes. So, but this is also a good kind of place to stop and do it really fast. All right, keep going. And we're not sewing up the neck or the head or anything, so as you stuff your duck's body, like you can still stuff the head a little, so don't worry about making sure it's like totally perfect yet. Just get some in there so that you're not trying to get it fully stuffed when you've got the whole body done. That gets really difficult. All right. I like that amount of stuffing. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with the body. All right, at this point forward, as you can see now, we've kind of got ourselves one big round right here. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, is just going in one big round. All right, so we're going to start on round 19. We're going to start with 12 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we're going to do an increase. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets. So 1, 2. And another increase. All right, and then we're going to do 12 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right, and then we're going to do 3 single crochets and an increase. We're repeating that 3 times around the neck. So 1, 2, 3, increase. 1, 2, 3, increase. 1, 2, 3, increase. Right. Move that stitch marker. Make sure that we're going in all the stitches. All right, round 20, we're going to start with 31 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Right, and then we're going to do two single crochets, then an increase, and then another 2 single crochets, and we're going to repeat that 3 times around. So 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, 1, 2, increase, 1, 2. All right, go ahead and move that stitch marker. All right, now for rounds 21, 22, and 23, we're just doing 49 single crochets around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49. All right, move that stitch marker. Repeat for round 22. right, move that stitch marker. And then round 23, we're doing the same thing. 49 single crochets. All right, round 24 is what we're going to be on next. I'm going to start with 13 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then we're going to do a decrease. All right. And then 2 single crochets. 1, 2. Then a decrease again. And then we're going to finish up the round with 30 single crochets. All right, move that stitch marker. All right, for round 25, we're going to be starting with 13 single crochets again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right, and then we're going to do a decrease. Right, and then just one single crochet, and then another decrease. All right, and then we're going to do 11 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then we're going to finish off the round by doing 2 single crochets, decrease, and then another 2 single crochets. And we're going to repeat those steps 3 times. So 1, 2, decrease, 1, 2, 1, 2, decrease, 1, 2, 1, 2, decrease, 1, 2. All right, move that stitch marker. And then round 26, we're just doing 5 single crochets and a decrease, and we're repeating that 6 times around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, decrease, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, decrease. Right. Move that stitch marker. Round 27, 4 single crochets and a decrease, repeating it 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait. 4, decrease, 1, 2, 3, 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 4, decrease. All right, round 28, we're doing 3 single crochets and a decrease, repeating it 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, decrease, 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 1, 2, 3, decrease. All right. Round 29 is 2 single crochets and a decrease, repeating 6 times. 1, 2, decrease, 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 1, 2, and decrease. All right, we're gonna move on to stuffing for just a second before we get too tight to be able to get it in. So with the stuffing your duck, it's kind of hard because we have to stuff this whole back area as well. So again, as I'm putting it in this time, I am just going to push it right to the back because the hole is more near the front. So we have all of this that just needs a bunch of stuffing in it. So like I did with the head, we're just going to kind of get a bunch in there. And then I'm also gonna push some up into the neck because the neck didn't get stuffed before. We just stuffed the head. So I'm gonna make sure I get a little into the neck. And then as far as the body goes, remember, just keep kind of breaking it down into smaller chunks to get it in. And then once you get some in, you can kind of do the same thing you're supposed to do with just pushing the stuffing to the outsides. Just make sure that you get a good amount of stuffing back in the back of him. And you like how everything else is stuffed. The head will be a little wobbly. That's what's supposed to happen. So the more stuffing you add in the neck, the less wobbly it'll be, but I think it's kind of cute when he has a little bobble head. Push just a little more stuffing up into the neck and head. Again, move it to the outsides. All right. And then I like to just kind of keep going with it, and then as you keep closing up, you can keep adding more if you need to. So then round 30, we're just doing a single crochet and a decrease 6 times. So single. It gets kind of hard at this point because, you know, we stuffed it, and so now the stitches are going to be farther apart and tighter. So just make sure that you're going in all the correct stitches. And then I always like to kind of pull these rounds kind of tighter so that there's not like gaps. So after I do it, I will pull tight just for these last couple of rounds. Last decrease. Okay. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take out the stitch marker completely because it just gets kind of tight. And then we're just gonna do round 31, which is just decreases all around. And at this point, I'm gonna move to just regular decreases so it gets kind of tight for the invisible ones. But you do what you want. All right, when you get that last decrease done, go ahead and get a little bit of a yarn tail. And then we're gonna close it up. All right, so to sew up the hole in the bottom, we're just gonna start by threading our yarn tail onto one of our yarn needles. And then we're just gonna insert our yarn needle into the front loops of each of those decreases we did in the last round. And just pull it through. And then as you start going around all the decreases and just kind of pulling it tight, you'll see that it starts to kind of close it up. And then just make sure you go in all of them. And then every time I finish it up, I just like to take my yarn needle and just insert it into the bottom. And then just bring it out somewhere else on the duck's body, just to kind of help secure it in place. All right, and I'm just gonna cut it off. And now we have our cute little duck body complete. So it is now time to move on to making all of the different parts of him. So we're gonna start today by grabbing our Sunset Sorbet yellow, orange, and we're gonna start by making the legs, his little feet. So to make the feet, we're gonna start by doing our magic ring alternative. And this time in that magic ring alternative, we're doing 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, and then for round number 2, we're doing 3 half double crochets in 1 stitch and then a slip stitch, and we're going to repeat that 3 times. So a half double crochet, you're just going to start by with yarn over. You're going to insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, so you should have 3, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We're going to repeat so that there are 3 half double crochets in 1 stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch in the next one. And then 3 half double crochets. And then a slip stitch. And then another 3 half double crochets. 2 and 3, and then a slip stitch to finish it off, leaving a little yarn tail for sewing. All right, let's make another one. So again, our magic ring alternative. 6 single crochets in that magic ring alternative. 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. 3 half double crochets in that first one. Ooh, okay. Hold on, it got caught, so we're starting that one over. Okay, and one more. Right, slip stitch. Another 3 half double crochets. Slip stitch. 3 more half double crochets. And a slip stitch. All right. And the last piece we're going to make with this one, this color, is going to be our beak. So we're going to start this one by making a chain of 4. So however you want to make that chain, go for it. 3, 4. All right, and then we're going to start in that second the second chain from the hook. We're going to start with a half double crochet. And then a half double crochet increase, which is just 2 half double crochets in one, same as a regular increase. You're just doing 2 in one. And then a half double crochet. And then I just like to slip stitch back into that same stitch I just did a half double crochet in. It just kind of finishes it off nicely. You don't need a super long yarn tail for this one. And then because the 2 of these are so close together, I like to tie them just to kind of help it have a little cleaner look instead of having 2 spots. And then when I sew it on, I'll use the long yarn tail and we'll just weave this one into the duck, but then it kind of helps it have a different shape for the beak. Alrighty. Now we're gonna go ahead and grab our next color, which is our maple syrup tan. And we're gonna start with the tail. So for the tail, we're gonna start with our magic ring alternative, starting with the chain 2. But instead of single crocheting in this second chain from the hook, we're gonna start with 1 single crochet and then 3 half double crochets. We're still working into that second chain to create our magic ring alternative, just with half double crochets. All right, once you did 3, then we're just gonna do a regular single crochet. Again, you don't need a long yarn tail at all for this one. Then you have the tail, same kind of thing I did with the beak. I like to just tie a knot in these 2. It just makes it, especially with the tail, with how we're gonna sew it on, it makes a lot of sense that they're tied. So, and then we'll weave the short one in, use the long one for sewing. All right. And the last piece that we're going to make are the wings. So we're going to start with our magic ring alternative. And we're going to do 8 single crochets in it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. And then we're going to grab a stitch marker. All right, for round number 2, we're doing 8 increases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, and then rounds 3 through 7, we're just doing 16 single crochets around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Remember to flip it. All right, so round 4, same thing, 16 single crochets. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Right. Round number 5, same thing, 16 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Right, round number 6. 16 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Last one, round 7, 16 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right, round number 8, we're gonna start with 3 single crochets and a decrease. And we're gonna repeat that 3 times. So 1, 2, 3, decrease, 1, 2, 3, decrease, 1, 2, 3, decrease, and then you should have 1 extra stitch at the end where we're going to add a single crochet. All right, round 9, we're just going to do 13 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Right, round number 10, we're doing a single crochet and then a decrease. And we're doing it 4 times. So single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, and again on this round you should have an extra stitch where we're going to put one single crochet. Alright, for this one I'm going to go ahead and take the stitch marker out because it's going to get quite small. I'm going to do 4 decreases and then a single crochet for round 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a single crochet. And then to finish off our wing, we're just going to fold it in half and work 2 single crochets across the top. Go ahead and leave a little yarn tail. We're not stuffing the wings because we want them to kind of just sit against the body, and then they're gonna kind of add their own because it's chunky. So, all right, last one, last part. All right, start with our magic ring alternative with 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Round 2 is 8 increases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right. And then again, rounds 3 through 7 are just 16 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, oops, 15, 16, right, round 4, 16 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, round 5, 16 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, round 6, 16 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Alright, round 7, 16 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Alright, round 8, 3 single crochets and a decrease, repeated 3 times. Decrease. 1, 2, 3, decrease. 1, 2, 3, decrease, and then remember the single crochet at the end. Alright, round 9, 13 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Alright, round 10, single crochet and a decrease, repeated 4 times. Single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, single, decrease, and remember, finish off with a single crochet. And then round 11, just 4 decreases with a single crochet at the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't forget that single crochet, and then fold in half and single crochet 2 across the top. right, leave a little yarn tail, pull it tight, and we are ready to start sewing. All right, let's get to sewing all the things onto the duck. All right, the first thing that I like to sew on is the beak. It's super easy to sew on. It has a spot already for it, so I like to start with the beak, just get the easy one out of the way. So attach it to your yarn needle. And then you can see the beak kind of has like a natural, like it just wants to curve downwards. So we're gonna sew it on that way, not curving upwards. We're gonna sew it curving down. So we're just gonna take it and it's gonna go right in the center. And we're only sewing across this chain right here. And it's gonna go right on this one, right below the eyes, just in the center. So I like to take another yarn needle and just stick it through both the beak and into the head, just to kind of help with keeping it in place for sewing so I don't have to hold it as much while I sew. I can just kind of sew it on and it'll stay in place for me. Oops. All right. Then when you get it finished, we're just gonna, I just like to pull it through somewhere else. Just again, keeps the yarn nice and secure. And then I'm just gonna take my crochet hook and just go into a stitch right by there and pull that yarn tail into the head so that way you don't see it at all. And now your ducky has a beak. All right. The next one I'm going to do is the feet. So go ahead and attach it to a yarn needle. And then for this one, with this yarn tail, I like to cut it shorter. Don't cut it all the way to the knot, just leave a smaller yarn tail. And then just flip it because we want the right side facing out. And then on the bottom of the duck, it's gonna go, you're gonna kind of look at it from the side when placing it. And we kind of want it to be in like in line with like the center of the head. Just on the bottom. And I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did with the yarn needle. Just start sewing it on. On this one, do have to kind of hold it a little as well, just to keep it flat while you're sewing the first few on. So with this one, you're not going to sew the entire thing down. So once you get a few in, and take that out. And then once you get like 2 or 3 stitches in down on the bottom, making sure that we're, keeping it on secured still, we're going to take it and holding it down, we're gonna just thread it through a part of the top of the foot, like one of the toes. And then sew that to the body. And that's just gonna kind of help it. You don't want it on the tip of the toes though, you want it to be kind of in the middle. Make sure you kind of pull it tight so that it disappears. But then the toes are still kind of out and loose, so that's kind of fun. All right, and then go to the other side, and then we're just gonna finish sewing it down over on this side. All right, and then like I said before, this is how I finish all of my pieces. Alright, once you have one leg on, or one foot on, it's a little easier to get the second one on. Just because you already kind of know the placement of it. And cut it off. So we have a little shorter yarn tail right there. Alright, so you're just gonna kind of place it. I like to keep at least like one stitch in between there. You can kind of look at it from all the angles and see how you want it. Make sure that yarn tail is underneath. And again, just kind of go through it, through the foot, up near one of the toes a little bit more. Alright. And then just secure it in place. All right. Now that we have both of our feet on, we're going to move on to the wings and the tail. So I am going to go ahead and start with the tail just because it's one of the easier ones to sew on. The wings take a second to figure out the placement, so I like to get everything else on first so that I can see really how it's gonna look. All right. So for the tail, you can tell that this one, because it's so small, it's just gonna curve one way. It's not gonna be able to curve another way, but we want it to curve in towards the duck. So we're going to be placing it right here on the end of where you can kind of see where our chain was, where the whole thing started. So we're just going to go to the back of that, right in the center there. I'm just going to go ahead and attach our little tail there. Perfect. And then I'm just weaving it through a lot just because it is such a small piece up there that I don't want it to fall off. And then as far as this other yarn tail goes, we're just gonna take it, and I go behind the tail for this one. It just kind of helps it not lean forward too much when you're doing the tail piece. But now you have a little tail. All right. And last but not least, we're gonna do the wings. And the wings aren't hard to sew on by any means. They're definitely the easiest thing to sew on. They're just, it takes a little bit longer to find the placement for them. So as you can see with the wings, there's kind of a natural curve that they have, and we want it to curve with the body. So make sure that that curve is matching the body. You're not doing it the opposite way like that, right? We want it to be curving with the body. And then you're kind of gonna line it up in the center, like centered with the head, with the feet. And then you're gonna go about 4 rows, 3 or 4 rows roughly below where the neck starts. And then you're gonna angle it up just slightly. Alright, and then go ahead and just sew it on. You're just using those single crochets in the front, or on the end of the wing that we did. You're just sewing through those, so it's really easy. All right, and then if you want your wing to sit more like straight across the body or up, you can kind of sew it based on that, based on the angle that you want it to sit at. So because I want mine to kind of angle up a little bit more, I'm gonna go ahead and just sew a couple of extra stitches going up the side of the wing. Oops. So I'm just gonna stick it into a yarn, or one of the loops on the side of the wing, and just sew it up a little bit. Just like 2 or 3 stitches. It doesn't need to be anything dramatic, just enough that it kind of gives it a shape or gives it a place to sit. And then you know the drill by now. All right. If you want to, you can sew more of it to keep it down, but I like mine to be able to flap. All right, and then once you have one wing on, just make sure that the other one is lined up with it. It's in the same position, at the same angle. All those things. So look at it from the front, make sure that you kind of line up which rows you're sewing it onto, how far back you're sewing it on. All those things. And you're welcome to sew it on wherever you want, however you want. This is just what I do. But it is your duck. You can choose. Alright, and like I did on the other wing, I'm just going to go up like 3 stitches up the arm just to give it a slight angle. We don't want to angle too much, you don't want it to be sticking straight up in the air, but we do just want to give it a little bit of an angle so that it's not just flopping around. This also just kind of helps it stay in place a little more. right, one more. Okay, that one came out way back here. All right. And then once you are done getting everything sewn on, you can clean them up a little bit. You probably are gonna have a hole back here like mine. So all I do is take a little piece of vanilla cream white and just tie it to the yarn needle. And this is just gonna help it also blend with the color changes, which is really nice. So, all right, I'm just gonna go ahead and just get it attached first. So I like to just pull it through. And just tie a little knot, and then we'll weave that yarn tail in. And then I'm just gonna go on either side, so going from this brown one, and we're gonna go diagonally up to the white. And then as you pull it shut, and then we're gonna go down into this brown on this side. And then we're gonna go up through the white on the other side. And you're just gonna keep kind of just weaving it through different strands of the brown and the white until you get it closed and until you get a look that you're comfortable with in the back, that you like. It looks good. All those things. Just make sure that it is all stitched up. And then just kind of pull it through. Cut it off. And then we're just going to take our crochet hook, come up through here, grab that yarn tail from where we tied it on, pull it through. It doesn't need to go all the way through, it's just gonna go in a good chunk of the way, and then cut off the excess. And there you go. Now you don't have a hole, it's a little more of a seamless color change. And now you have your adorable mallard duck. Kind of fix the beak if it got a little squeezed. But there you have it, nice and cute. Got little wings, little feet, tail. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching the Okey's crochet tutorial for creating this very adorable duck. And I would love to see your guys' creations as well. So if you post it on social media, be sure to tag us at Okey's crochet so I can see. See you guys next time.